I now welcome Robin Stanley to the stage. Okay, Robin brought her own cheering section. Nice. Come on.
Hi, everybody. Excuse me. I'm Robin Stanley, and I serve as the NLEA treasurer. My day job, I'm the CFO for Industrial Magnetics in Boyne City. Our keynote speaker today really needs no introduction. Joe Short has been a pioneer in the craft beer industry since starting Short's Brewery Company in a former hardware store in downtown Bel Air in 2003. He's created an amazing company, surrounded himself with incredibly talented people, continually produces an excellent product, and gives back to the community as well as the craft beer industry. Short's Brewing Company has grown to be the third largest brewing company in Michigan. We are thrilled to have such a great example of a quality company, quality product, quality people, and community involvement as our speaker today. I'm happy to introduce a professional beer maker, film star, country singer, and all-around superstar, Joe Short.
Hello! Hi, everybody. Thank you, Robin, for a wonderful introduction. Thanks for inviting me to speak with you all and share my story. Before I get started, I want to thank our Fest and Events team for setting up some great displays out front for you all to check out. Either on your way in earlier, you might have seen them, and on your way out today, take a look. Those are some of the handcrafted pieces of art that we travel around the Midwest with, promoting our brand and our products and our company. I do have a disclaimer, though. Typically, when I speak in large groups of people like this, they have had several beverages of alcoholic nature, myself included. So, I don't profess to be a great speaker, but I do have a story, and I tell it a little differently every time. So how I got started with Short's Brewing Company, advance to slide 3. I was a born entrepreneur. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but as a 10-year-old, I realized that a certain level of financial independence would really help ease your way through life. And I guess one shining example that continues to haunt me is when I was reminded that at a young age I would save all of my Halloween candy after Halloween and hoard it for about a month, and then right before Christmas break I would sell it all on the bus. And I came up with several other entrepreneurial type ideas like that. My mother used to be a hairdresser in our homestead, and I would fix up old bikes and try to sell them to her customers. And then eventually, at the age of 14, when I could get a real job on the books, pay Social Security and all that fun stuff, I got into the hospitality trade as a busboy working at the dockside, and that was in the the early 90s. And I was a quiet, shy kid, and getting into the hospitality trade was really healthy for me because it forced me to talk to people. It taught me a little bit about the northern Michigan economy and how seasonal it was and what kind of products and services consumers were looking for. And eventually, I grew at the dockside for about 10 years. I worked there, from busboy to waiter to bartender, and became quite a socialite over that decade of time, and not to mention a hellion at the least. But toward my tenure at dockside, like every young person after high school, I was recommended that I go to college. So I knew at one point that college was a place that all high school graduates were supposed to go. Nobody in my family went to college. I was the first generation to do that. And I knew that I needed to go do something in life that I enjoyed. Well, at that time, it was wood shop in high school. So I was like, maybe I can just do wood shop forever. But then somebody got hurt, and then they took wood shop away. But anyway, I went to Western Michigan University for industrial arts education, which is code for wood shop. And, but really, in looking back at it all now, what I do is industrial arts education. I'm a, professional, self-taught professional brewer, and it is an industrial art. And here I am teaching you all about it. How about that? So this is a photo of me when I was 19, and I had a bottle of yeast explode in my house in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I became so infatuated with teaching myself to homebrew, and actually let me digress a little bit. I started to teach myself how to homebrew to circumnavigate the legal drinking age because I am a do-it-yourselfer. But through that process of self-education, I really fell in love with the art of the craft. It does have quite a bit of microbiology in it, and ironically enough, I dropped out of microbiology 3 times in my stint at Western. But I learned how to become quite a proficient brewer. So I decided that I'm going to go out. Eventually, I turned 21. I dropped out of college, and I wanted to go make beer in the real world. And so 2-3 years went by, worked from a couple different breweries, learned a few things, and then decided that I needed to start my own brewery. There was either continuing the trend of working at other breweries and working my way up there, or doing something at home, close to my family, in a place where I wanted to do it. And if that didn't work out, I would go back to college. So at around 2002, I signed the lease on the hardware store, and I showed up with this truckload of tanks, and a gentleman walked down the street and said, how's it going? What are you doing here? I said, well, I signed the lease on this hardware store. Isn't this exciting? I'm going to put a microbrewery in here. He's like, did you talk to anybody about that? I'm like, well, who needs to know? Are they signing the lease? In short order, and this is a common theme for Shorts Brewing Company, is that the cart is farther ahead of the horse more often than not. So he said, well, typically you go in front of the village council and you got to approve the zoning, and zoning didn't have anything in the ordinance about a microbrewery, so we had to put a special use permit in place, which was accepted and generally humored, really. Well, let's just see what this guy can do then, huh? I mean, the building's going nowhere anytime soon. So fast forward a little bit, I learned a lot about the process of starting a business in a small community, and very fortunate to have Bel Air, because it is small and it was a little more efficient to work through all the processes, and they were very amenable to the setup. But what I didn't realize is that when you change the use of a building, you have to bring it up to code, which jacked the price of my $30,000 startup venture about 17 times. And didn't have any of that money planned. But yeah, so we had to hire an engineer and get blueprints. What are blueprints? How much do they cost? $10,000! But I was determined to make it work, and we got through it. It was about 18 months of construction. And in 2004, after I credited a lot of free labor for future store credit at the pub if it eventually opened, we opened Short's Brewing Company, and it was a monumentous day. And the reason why I chose Bel Air is because it was close to home for me. I'm a huge fan of water skiing. I grew up close to Rapid River, close to Torch Lake, obviously being on the dockside. And now I have 2 facilities that are connected by this chain of lakes, which is very exciting. Cue to slide 7. And so knowing that I wanted to live where I wanted to live and do what I wanted to do was super important to me. The other reason why I decided to do Shorts and Bel Air is it was a really small community, and it reminded me of the colonial brewing literature that I read when I first started making beer, and how truly important a local brewery was to shaping the community around it. And I'm very proud to feel like our brewery has done that over the last 14 years, which we had just celebrated a couple weeks ago. So along the way, we're going to get into a little bit of what's happened the last 14 years. So along the way, you can go to slide 8 and then 9. No wonder you guys are confused. So slide 11. Bel Air's on your way to nowhere, which meant that we really had to figure out a way to put ourselves on the map. And it required us to be extraordinary, which meant that we had to provide an excellent product and an excellent service and an excellent experience, and hopefully word of mouth would help build this into a destination type place. We worked backwards from the consumer experience. If anybody who's not familiar with Short's Brewing Company, we've perpetually been under construction since 2004. We've absorbed a half a dozen downtown storefronts. We went from a 75-foot coffee shop style order at the counter to a 450-seat mega restaurant brew pub. And all that was built around the consumer experience, because initially you would just go up and order at the bar, and over a couple of years we'd have lines out the door because people were waiting to go order at the bar. And one of my biggest achievements was convincing our team that we had to change the service model, and that took me a year and a half to do, because I had to make it their idea. I had to get their full buy-in, and even my wife included, which amazingly didn't result in a divorce, so that worked out. So here we are, slide 12, working backwards from the customer experience. Changed our service model. We had a ton of expansions. Here is what's happened to Destination Brew Pub. 14-year anniversary party a couple weeks ago. We closed down a state highway and threw a party to celebrate a 14-year achievement, and had 3,500 people come through the village of Bel Air. So it was a huge point of pride and a big impact. Thank you. So I'll try to stay on track here. We're going to move right over to slide 14. We've got some noteworthy stumbling blocks along the way, not unlike the first version for the pub, but the one when we built our production facility in Elk Rapids. So what you see here is the back of our production facility in Elk Rapids. On the left is the production facility before wastewater treatment, and on the right is the production facility after wastewater treatment. It's a $1.7 million investment, and it came at a time when we were experiencing 40% growth. We had no idea what the hell we were doing or how to do it. And one day we got a knock on our door from the village of Elk Rapids saying, like, hey, you guys are wrecking our wastewater plant. Can you either pay us some money to fix it or do something about it yourselves? So we elected to put on our own wastewater treatment plant, which was a stretch for us, huge capital expense. And we came to an agreement with the village that said, like, we're going to have it done by this date. That date came and went because the people we hired to build that facility went out of business. They used all the money that we gave them to pay off other jobs. So really shady business guys. So we had to figure out how to not deliver waste to the village and still get our wastewater treatment plant on time with zero money and 40% growth. Still here today, so that's good. I'm not going to lie and say that beer is our best form of currency, but it really is. So we gave a lot of the contractors like a handshake deal and said, we promise we'll pay you, just finish this thing off. Meanwhile, we were trucking waste out of the facility every week at $5,000 a pop. And so if that's not insult to injury, I don't know what is. So another noteworthy stumbling block was the bad huma. So here's a pretty picture of what huma looks like. Throughout Elk Rapids' perpetual expansion as well, we've done multiple tank additions, and those tanks had to come in through the ceiling, which meant that we had to like pull the rivets off, peel the steel back, peel the insulation off, remove a girder, drop the tanks in, and then kind of like patch it all back up. It eventually became named the Rainforest because when we put it back together, it didn't hold water very well. And so, like, we would have drips of water from all the insulation in the roof come through. And Huma, being our #1 brand at the time, also required a massive dry hop. And a dry hop is when you take hops and dump them into the tank at the end of fermentation. Well, when we had brewers walking through the brewery with buckets of hops, little drops from the rainforest would fall into these hops. And it would contaminate the beer at a really slow pace, at a pace that you would only identify it after the beer has been packaged and shipped. That was a real stinger. That was the Belgian Huma days. And the gut feeling told me that this is exactly what was happening, and right around the time that we had to build our lab. But, you know, a noteworthy, $250,000 stumbling block when we needed beer to pay the bills. It was cash on the barrelhead. Every time a truck left, it was cash to pay bills with. So I rolled into work one day, and they were loading all this beer onto a truck, and it was Huma. I was like, do not send the truck anywhere. And I hopped onto the back of the truck, and I peeled open a keg ring, and I pushed my thumb down on the valve to make some beer squirt out. And I licked my hand. And I said, damn it! We have to dump all this beer out. Like, we can't sell this. But here we are again. We survived it. So I'm going to advance to slide 16. We're here and beyond. Slide 17. As Robin indicated earlier, we're Michigan's 3rd largest brewery, and we're also one of Michigan's largest cider maker too. And on your tables, I've put together a collection of different products. So you've got Locals Light, which is American Light Lager. You've got Melt My Brain, which is a gin and tonic inspired shandy. You've got Soft Parade Shandy, which is a blend of our Soft Parade Fruit Ale with lemonade. And then you've got 2 ciders, Pulsar, which is our dry cider, and Squishy, which is cider with Ballanton and Montmorency cherries. All of our cider products are Michigan sourced. So take those home with you and enjoy them. But we're a company that's really proud of the products that we make. We're a group of people really passionate about what we're working on. Our goals going forward is to remain driven with our genuine people who care approach. It's a big thing for me. Just show up and care. And we continue to build teams that focus on our customer and the health of our company. And as someone with no college degree or MBA, I'm learning a lot. And I've learned, really more importantly, that the team around me is really the people who I attribute the success of Shorts to. We live by the mantra of loving where we live and loving what we do. Very proud to be working and living here in northern Michigan. It's probably one of the most magical places anybody could want to be. We do a lot of innovative stuff. This coming Memorial Weekend Friday, we launched the Psychedelic Catgrass, which is a triple dry hopped India Pale Ale. But the cool thing about this project is that it is packaged, delivered, and consumed in the Great Lakes region in less than 24 hours. This is the only project of its nature that's existed, and this is the third year in a row we're doing it. So I always like to say it's Shorts making world beer history. And we're excited to launch that this coming Memorial Day Friday. Slide 18 is what you're seeing right here. I profess to our team that people like us because of the products that we make. We make really tasty stuff. We have great food. We have a great product and service at the pub. But they love us because of who we are and what we believe in. And this is a list of things that, just a small list, because we're running out of time, where, it's important for us to cultivate meaning relationships with all of these organizations. You can see the NLEA is on here. And I'm running out of time, so I want to leave you with something special. But one of the things that we really believe in is developing content that is educational, stimulating, and kind of articulates a little bit of our passion and humor in what we do every day, because we really, at the end of the day, we got to have fun. We can't take ourselves too seriously. It's food and beverage. So I'm going to leave you with a little project, an alter ego. A guy named Billy Braxton is in a super group called Braxton Hicks and the Contractions, which is a very ingenuitive name for a guy going through his first pregnancy with his wife. So without further ado, I leave you with a fun video from Braxton Hicks and the Contractions. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful lunch.
The enterprise of awesome. It comes from the land surrounded by water, made with molten little green flowers, crafted with magic and some super extra awesome. Superfluid has the power. Superfluid has the power. Get a dose of a flavorful shower. You can enjoy one in an hour, but don't be gone too long, 'cause I don't want to wait all night before I put the fucking kids to bed.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate it, and what a wonderful journey that you've had. All right, I now would like to introduce NLEA board member and Charlevoix County Administrator Kevin Shepard, who will be presenting the annual Maniac of the Year Award.